And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please note for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand.
This may look like another tense congressional exchange, but it's actually a test of institutional accountability under public scrutiny. What's really being tested here is whether transparency laws apply equally, not just in theory, but in execution. This raises broader questions about how power handles sensitive disclosures and whether justice systems protect the vulnerable or expose them further. In this video, we'll break down the confrontation, the legal obligations at stake, and what this moment reveals about authority, responsibility, and trust in federal oversight.
Questions recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Attorney General Bondi, right here. We are joined in this room by some of the thousands of survivors from Jeffrey Epstein's horrific sex trafficking ring. They have shown such incredible courage in speaking out, in demanding accountability to bring the predators and pedophiles to justice. The Epstein Files Transparency Act required your Department of Justice to disclose the perpetrators connected with Epstein's criminal activities and to redact the information of survivors to protect their identities. Let me show you what actually happened. First, in violation of the law, your department has shown a pattern of redacting the names of powerful predators. Here behind me is one example of an email from Epstein to a man whose name was redacted. The email reads, quote, "Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video." Only after members of Congress demanded that we see the unredacted files did the world learn the name of this individual, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, the chairman and CEO of a company that had financial ties to President Trump's business and personal ties to Trump's advisor, Steve Bannon. Second, the survivors were not similarly protected, also in violation of the law. Here is another email titled Epstein Victim List. We have blurred the names of the survivors for their protection, but your Department of Justice initially released this list of 32 survivors' names with only one name redacted, along with numerous files that disclose not only the names, the emails, and the addresses of survivors, but also nude photographs and even the identities of Jane Does who had been protected for decades until your department released their names. Survivors are now telling us that their families are finding out for the first time that they were trafficked by Epstein. In their words, quote, "This release does not provide closure. It feels like a deliberate attempt to intimidate survivors, punish those who came forward, and reinforce the same culture of secrecy that allowed Epstein's crimes to continue for decades." To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please note for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi, you apologized to the survivors in your opening statement for what they went through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Congresswoman, you sat before, Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi,
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a specific question that I would like you to answer, which is, will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
That's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the answer. So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't she ask Merrick Garland this?
I'm reclaiming my time, and when I reclaim my time, it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady has reclaimed her
I'm not going
time.
to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentlelady. The gentlelady has 17 seconds.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, so let me just
Chairman,
say
I'll
this.
direct it to
What a
you.
massive
No, I'm
cover-up.
answering a question.
Chairman, will you restore her time? The witness is
I'm not
interrupted.
going to get in the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time
doing
and
theatrics.
let me have my
The
time.
gentlelady from Washington controls the time. The gentlelady has 17 seconds. You can proceed with your final
Thank you.
17 seconds.
What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be. Donald Trump made the release of the Epstein Files the center of his political campaign because he thought it would benefit him. Then you got into office, Attorney General, claimed to have a client list, only
Regular
to
order.
then say that there was no list. Your deputy, Todd Blanche, met alone with Elaine Maxwell and transferred her to a minimum security prison. And now you continue the cover-up, and I wish that you would turn around to the survivors who are standing right behind you and on a human level
Chairman,
apologize
Chair now
to them
recognizes the
on what you
Unprofessional.
have done.
The time of the gentlelady
yield
expired.
back.
The gentlelady, you have no time to yield back.
Theatrics.
We appreciate that. We appreciate the thought. And I would argue the central issue in the last election, the presidential election, was securing the border. The gentleman from Arizona who knows something about securing the border is up for.
The moment unfolded with a silence heavier than any gavel strike. Representative Pramila Jayapal stood before Attorney General Pam Bondi and did something rare in Washington. She turned the focus away from procedure and toward the people standing in the room. Behind the Attorney General, survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes were present. Real faces, real lives, real consequences. And in that chamber, Jayapal asked a simple human question. Would the Attorney General turn around and apologize for what the Department of Justice had done in releasing sensitive information tied to the Epstein files? It was not a question about policy alone. It was not a debate over partisan lines. It was a moment that forced the nation's top law enforcement official to confront the human impact of bureaucratic decisions. The Epstein Files Transparency Act had required disclosure of perpetrators connected to Epstein's network while protecting the identities of survivors. Jayapal alleged that instead, powerful names were shielded while survivors' identities were exposed. Emails were partially redacted. A list titled Epstein Victim List was released with insufficient protection. According to testimony, names, contact information, and other identifying details entered public circulation. Survivors, Jayapal said, were learning that their families were discovering their past for the first time, not through choice, but through a government document. Then came the moment that shifted the room. If you are willing, please stand, Jayapal said to the survivors, and they did. If you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice, please raise your hands. Every hand rose. The image was stark. The law on paper. The faces in the room. And the silence in response to a direct question. Would the Attorney General turn and apologize for the department's actions? Bondi attempted to answer by referencing her predecessor. Jayapal reclaimed her time. The chairman intervened. Voices overlapped. The word theatrics was spoken. The clock ticked down. 17 seconds remained, and the apology did not come. What does this reveal about government? It reveals how power often retreats into procedure when confronted with moral accountability. In the halls of Congress, words like redaction, disclosure, and compliance can obscure something far more fundamental: the responsibility to protect the vulnerable while pursuing justice against the powerful. When survivors stand in a room asking for acknowledgement, the question is no longer just about documents. It is about dignity. Jayapal accused the department of a massive cover-up. She referenced campaign promises. She cited conflicting statements about whether a client list existed. She noted a meeting between Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. Each detail fed into a broader narrative. That transparency was promised, but trust was eroded. But beyond the political framing lies something deeper. The American justice system rests on two pillars: accountability and fairness. If powerful individuals are shielded while survivors are exposed, even unintentionally, the perception of imbalance can be as damaging as the act itself. Trust in institutions is fragile. It does not collapse all at once. It fractures in moments like these. The Attorney General had an opportunity not to concede legal liability, not to settle a partisan dispute, but to acknowledge human pain, to turn around, to look. to speak directly. In politics, symbols matter. A handshake, a pause, a word of empathy. These gestures echo far beyond the chamber walls. Instead, the hearing moved on. The chairman redirected the focus to border security. The clock reset, the narrative shifted, but for those watching and for those standing behind the witness table, the moment lingered. In American history, there have been hearings that change policy, and there have been hearings that changed perception. This was a hearing about transparency, but it became a hearing about responsibility. It asked whether leadership means defending an institution at all costs, or whether it means absorbing criticism to protect those who have already endured too much. Justice is not only about convictions, it is about conduct. It is about whether the powerful answer directly when asked a direct question. It is about whether government remembers that its authority derives from the people, especially those who feel forgotten. The Epstein case has long symbolized a failure of oversight, a web of influence, and a public demand for clarity. When documents are released, the expectation is that truth will emerge, not that harm will deepen. If mistakes were made, accountability must follow. If trust was broken, transparency must repair it. The hearing ended not with resolution, but with tension suspended in the air. Survivors standing, lawmakers arguing, an apology unspoken. And in that silence, the nation is left to decide what leadership should look like. Should power protect itself first? Or should it face those affected and speak plainly? Democracy depends on more than laws passed and files released. It depends on moral courage in moments when the cameras are rolling and the room is watching. It depends on whether officials are willing to step beyond partisan defense and acknowledge the human cost of institutional decisions. Because at the heart of every hearing, beyond every procedural motion, are people. If you believe accountability matters, if you believe transparency must be more than a campaign promise, if you believe justice must protect the vulnerable before it shields the powerful. Stay informed, stay engaged, and subscribe to Liberty Report USA.